Hello and welcome back to the Chatter Cave podcast, where we discuss media in the form of sort of just topical-based discussions and reviews. I'm your host, Drankin Thomas Hughes, and I'm going to be talking today about a film that I recently saw. I've been sitting on this film for a few weeks, wanting to watch it, and I finally picked it up recently. And I was like, "Fuck it, I'll watch it." And I was like, "Well, I might as well review it." And that is called a film called Arcadian. That was released. Well. Was it released back in June? I think it was this year. Yeah, I think it was. It obviously stars Nicolas Cage, and obviously I recently watched it because the co-op were doing like a bundle where you buy like 2 pizzas and like a Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and you get like a $4.99 movie voucher. And I was like, well, it's the only film I could see that I haven't watched that's like $4.99 on Amazon Prime. So I was like, I might as well use it on that. But it is also available on Now TV, I believe it is, because it recently came out on Sky Cinema. But I thought I'd pick it up. I mean, I didn't have to pay for it because I got the voucher, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just use it. So I gave it a watch Sunday night, and I was just like, I've seen the reviews on it. Obviously, I noticed critically it's quite decently reviewed. Audience-wise, not so good. Very much like Nicolas Cage's other film, Longlegs. Which I enjoyed more than most of the audience did. But obviously this one I wanted to check out because it's very much similar to A Quiet Place. Obviously the basic story is a father, obviously he's raised his 2 kids during this end of the world situation, and there are monsters that lurk in the darkness. Obviously they can't leave the confines of their basically shelters. Obviously in this case homes, but obviously any sort of shelter would do really if you can lock it down. They can't leave during the night or else these monsters will basically kill them. And the basic story premise is there's another farm across the forest basically, and the one son keeps going there, and basically it keeps coming back very close to night, and obviously issues occur which force the family to have to encounter these monsters more than they'd want to, more than they probably have had to it in the past. So it's basically, basic premise is there's a monster movie, but obviously you got the love story angle between obviously the one son and the daughter at the other farm. And so you got this sort of, it's just like a survival thriller with a bit of a romance thrown into the mix, which is most of these types of movies. It's okay. It's above average film. I wouldn't say it's as good as A Quiet Place, either part 1, part 2, or the A Day One. Quiet Place Day One, which I watched literally right before, and I was like, this doesn't compare at all to it. The characters are okay, pretty well acted. Nicolas Cage does a good job, despite the fact that his screen time isn't as big as I thought it was going to be. Especially the fact that he's front and center on the poster, which, I mean, isn't the first Nicolas Cage film I've watched in the last few years that he's had some sort of level on the of area on the poster, is the word I'm after here, and he's not actually been in the movie as much as that. You'd assume from that. I think the one was like Jiu-Jitsu. He's like on the cover, but he's barely in that film, and I think he's in this film a bit more than that, but he's just not as major as I'd liked. But obviously he does a good job with what he's got. So the writing's okay, and the story's pretty decent. The story's pretty run-of-the-mill for these type of movies. The monsters are pretty cool when you do get to see them. The problem with this movie is I find cinematography. Obviously they keep it very dark. But obviously when it's nighttime, it's very hard to see what the hell's going on, which is an issue for me. Obviously I get the idea of keeping the monsters a bit more masked in darkness and mystery until you kind of need them a bit later on when it actually fully hits. But I just feel like it does it a bit. It's just too dark. Even like the scenes with the monsters, it's just too dark to see anything, which is a shame, really. But as I say, when you get the monsters at the end, you do get to see them visually a bit more. The other issue with cinematography is shaky cam. I think the word of that I'm after is what I've read a lot of people complain about in reviews. Obviously, there's a lot of shaky cam. I know when I spoke to Hayden about it, because you like Cloverfield level, I went, yeah, but I feel like those sort of movies you can get past. You can let it slide a bit with a shaky cam because they're found footage. They're designed to be kind of shaky, whereas like a normal movie, like you kind of don't want it to be constantly shaky cam. and this movie kind of does that. So that is kind of like an issue. So cinematography, obviously, it's shaky cam and too dark is this movie's biggest issues for me. The other issue I have is its slow pace. It takes a massive chunk of the movie before anything happens. There's like a big moment midway through the movie, but it takes a while to get to it. Before that, nothing really happens. Not much going on. There is like a moment where it's like, without spoiling too much, the monsters are trying to get in the house, but obviously you don't really see much. It's more just shaky cam and banging on walls and stuff like that. You get that, but other than that, there's nothing really major until probably halfway through the movie, and you get this massive moment, and that kind of sets the tone and the pace for the rest of the movie. And obviously, it makes up for it with that, obviously that sequence and the big end sequence, but I think this movie just takes too long to get to it. So it gets to the point where people watching just zone out, and it's like, I'm kind of just drawn away from this movie because there's not too much going on. But as I say, it's ending, that sequence in the middle where it fully kicks it in, it's acting, all that pretty much do make up for a lot of this movie's flaws. I think the only problem I have at the ending, I think right at the end it does go a bit too far with one of its like sequences, which I was just a bit like, kind of reminds me of Critters, Critters 2, and I think Critters Attack specifically. I say I won't spoil anything, but just, if you've seen those two movies and you've seen this, you'll know which sequence I'm on about. And I was just a bit like, it's a bit too much. But I say I do really like the monster design. It's weird. They kind of remind me of like wolves, which is funny because they do make a reference to trying to jokingly figure out how the apocalypse basically happened, and one of the jokes was wolves, basically. So it's funny that the monsters are kind of wolf-like, but they got like these weird tails that kind of like shake vibrationally. It's just weird. The design-wise are weird as hell, but at the same time, it's like a really cool. Like, what the hell is this I'm looking at? It's like, it's fucked up, like design-wise, but at the same time, it's like, that's actually like a really cool design. But I say, all those sort of flaws that do make up, they just kind of counter out with the positives I have for this movie. They do kind of balance each other really well. Like, just counter each other out to the point of it's an above average movie. As I say, it's not as good as A Quiet Place, and realistically, with the whole idea of not being able to go out at night, it's kind of like I Am Legend. I think there's another film. I just can't remember what the film's called. No, it's gone from my head. Kind of reminds me of that one as well, but obviously I don't think that one was very good either. I think that one was pretty maybe worse review than this one. So yeah, I just don't think it's as good as some of these ones that have done it before. It's, as I say, this type of movie, it's been done. It's kind of, think of that, obviously, the one I did a few weeks ago. The Last Breath, obviously, that type of movie has been done a ridiculous amount of times. But they've probably been done both good and bad before, and it's one of those movies that kind of just fits in the middle, is what I'm trying to think of here. So it's not as if it's like the best of this type of genre, but at the same time, it's not as if it's the worst of its type of genre. I do think its slow pace will draw people away. As I say, it kind of drew me off a bit too much. So if you think about stuff like A Quiet Place, and I swear I Am Legend as well, you get a massive moment early on. Yes, it kind of slows down the rest of it until the next big moment, but you get something early on to sort of tide you over until that moment that you're after. Whereas this, it doesn't, like, without, I say, I'll tell you how it starts really. It's just Nicolas Cage running, but there's no monsters there he's running from. He's just running to get to his, obviously, two babies. And it's just like, that's the start of it. And I say, it's then about halfway through the movie, maybe over, yeah, but probably about halfway through the movie before you actually get anything that is intriguing. Most of the time, it's generally just, I'm not even going to say character development, because it's not even like the characters aren't massively flushed out. Yes, your basic traits for your characters are constantly pointed out, i.e., the one's kind of rebellious, sort of. The one's quite rebellious-ish. Like he still understands that he has to do stuff, but he still has this tendency to still kind of try and do his own things. The other one, he's kind of a bit smart. He's trying to make stuff. He thinks he's a genius, but he's not fully a genius. And you got the dad who's very overprotective and basically trying to do well by both sons, but realizes that he can't. Basically, they're very run-of-the-mill type characters. As I said, they're not fully flushed out. The monster mystery, obviously, why the apocalypse even happened, isn't really explained. Hopefully, if they do a second one, they will explain how it happened, because I feel like you kind of need to. It's obviously, I can't remember if A Quiet Place did it in the first one. No, I Am Legend did it in its first one, but I can't remember if A Quiet Place did it in its first one. No, it didn't in the sequel. It was at the start of it, you saw the invasion happen, and obviously in the new prequel, A Day One, you saw it all happen from the start. I can't remember if it showed you in the first Quiet Place movie, or explained or mentioned anything of how it happened. I can't remember. It's been that long since I watched the fucking first one. But I just think of this as more like a lower budgeted version of those movies, because I'm guessing the budget on this wasn't a massive budget. Most of the budget probably went to Nick Cage. But I say most of its setting for this film is practically the two farms, the woods, and it's like there's one other little place where the one kid lurks at one point. Other than that, that's it. It's confined to a few areas, which you tend to find with these sort of types of movies. They don't really, especially ones where, like, if you look at like A Quiet Place, the first one at least, they're more confined to certain areas. They don't tend to push the characters beyond these areas. Another movie this kind of like reminds me of is a film called Extinction. I believe it came out in I really want to say 2014. My mind says it's saying 2014 because there's two movies called Extinction. I'm gonna have to Google this. I know there's two movies called Extinction. One's to do with aliens and one's to do with zombies. 2015. The 2018 one's the Michael Pena one about aliens. The 2015 one is the one I'm thinking of, which stars Matthew Fox and Jeffrey Donovan, and it's basically to do with a father who's basically looking after his daughter in an icier climate, and they're like kind of not like basic Walking Dead type zombies. They're more like I assume they were Wendigos, but a lot of people on the internet kept saying zombies, but they're kind of like Wendigo-ish. Pretty certain they are Wendigos. And basically, I prefer that. I think that's a much better movie. I think mainly because I liked a lot of the dynamics in that. Like it very much pushed the father and daughter story a lot more. Obviously this one, it kind of doesn't push the father and sons. It's more like focus heavily on the sons, whereas that one focuses heavily on him trying to protect his daughter. Obviously, the next door neighbor is a former, as a convoy of fucking what the fucking called? I can't think of the call. There's like a convoy just went past my window of fucking vehicles. But this is the exact same vehicle. They weren't trucks. They were fucking like what the council used to fucking cut grass. I can't think what they actually specifically called those vehicles. Like ride on lawnmower type things. But yeah, obviously you got this neighbor next door. He's a former friend of this guy. There's a feud going on between them, and that's why there's a fence between them. And then you throw in like another outside character, and on top of like these Wendigo type zombie creatures, and it's all this tense survival flick in the snow. And I think that was a bit better. I remember that being better than this. I might have to rewatch, and my mindset might go down on it. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember actually enjoying it a lot more than what I enjoyed this movie. But that's not me saying this is a bad movie. It's still an entertaining movie at times. As I say, it's last act, and it's when it goes full monster, it's very entertaining. Its dialogue's decent enough to get you through the slow parts. And then obviously the choice of actors they chose for this were good enough to, as I say, get you through these slow parts. Because as I say, you got Nick Cage, who everyone knows who Nick Cage is. The one son's played by the actor who played Will Robinson in the Netflix Lost in Space TV show, and then the other the other son is played by the one who played, what was the character's name in that film? Was it Bill in It? Is that the character I'm thinking of? The stuttery character? I see he played the younger version of him. I swear it was Bill. I might be thinking of a completely different character name, but obviously he played him. So you got three actors that you've seen probably in something big before, and they do a good job in this, like I did in the previous properties they were in. It's not my favorite Nick Cage film of the year, but it's definitely better than some of the other Nick Cage films I've seen over the past so many years. Because half the films he puts out are just pieces of shit, or he's got such a smaller role, and you're just like, why was he even in it? I do have two other Nick Cage films I do want to check out at some point. I think it's Retirement Plan and it's Sympathy with the Devil or something like that. The one where he basically plays Satan in the back of that guy's car. I want to watch those two at some point, but I haven't had the chance yet. I might now. I've watched Arcadian, so I still got other Nick Cage properties to check out. Yeah, it's definitely not my favourite Nick Cage film of the year. I do prefer Long Legs a lot more, despite the fact that this is a normal performance from Nick Cage, and like Long Legs, which was a very crazy over the top performance from Nick. This is more like a normal actor, a normal person, a normal human being, not this crazy ass fucking psychopath that he played in there. Which, it's one of those, in that film it was like, it's one of those ones that's at times a bit too funny. Obviously, yes, you get the unhingedness. It's over the top, it's creepy, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but it's Nick Cage. It's a fucking hilarious Nick Cage performance. Whereas this is a normal, run-of-the-mill performance. There's no over-the-topness in this. And as I say, he gets his time to shine with trying to protect his sons, fighting the monsters. Like, he goes all out in the last act to obviously fight with these monsters, which is pretty cool. So that's what this film pretty much has got going for it. Its action sequences are pretty good. His acting's decent, and the middle and the end of the film are really well done. And so when you get to the middle, the pacing picks up to a decent pace. It's just that first, I want to say 30-40 minutes, it's a bit too slow for me. Nothing's really going on. Yes, I'm enjoying some of these scenes with the father and stuff. Like, there's a scene where the one son kind of fixes fixes a car basically, but it's not like a proper car. And obviously Nick Cage is there teaching him how to drive it. And there's this funny moment of him basically like trying to teach him how to drive, and he's like, "Oh, put the brake," and you got the other son in the back going, "Oh, I don't feel safe at all in this vehicle." And the dad's like, "Shut up, this isn't helping." So there is some really cool little nice moments between this family before that halfway point. So I think that's, yes, though it's slow, those moments do kind of make up for that slow pace, but only to an extent. I still think this movie probably would have done better having a big moment early on at the start of the film, maybe, and then do the slow pace, because at least then you've seen a big fucking moment. Maybe that opening sequence when he's running have it set dark nighttime rather than in the light. Like, he's had no choice but to go out to get something for his obviously two babies, and have a monster trying to chase him or something, and him having to lose the monster and hide. Maybe do something like that, just to give the audience something to go with at the start rather than just nothing. So you don't really get anything to work with at the start. It's not really till the midway point in the film when you get in the actual monster side of the story, which, I say, it makes up for the second half of the film, makes up for the first half of the film being very slow. But I said, there's only so much that can make up for that before you can say no. So I think that's why it kind of balances out to kind of a mid-card to just above average movie. Like, the back end of the movie definitely makes up for it heavily, but the first half does drop below the mark, but not heavily below the mark, I say, because the dynamic between the family is okay. There's some nice little moments between them that, as I say, do make up for it. But as I say, overall, it doesn't hit the marks I was hoping it to hit. Which is why I think if I could give this a rating, I've got it written down somewhere. I think I'll go with at the moment, like a 6.3 out of 10. I'd say it's good. It's not great. It's just above average. I don't think I got any higher than 6.3. Maybe probably if I rewatched it, I might have, as I usually say, my rewatch would either go lower or higher. I'd just stick with it. It's just that start of the movie just doesn't hit right at the gates really for me. And as I said, the scenes that are just too dark. It basically is like AVP Requiem level of dark at times. Like you can just barely see what's going on, which as I say is a shame, because if they up the brightness just a little bit, heck, up it enough that you don't still see the monsters, because they still keep the monsters off screen in these dark moments. So you really, I don't know why they had it as dark as they did. So the monsters aren't fully visible even in these dark scenes. Like it's like you just see like stuff like arms or a quick shot of them. Like I feel like it's even a bit brighter, you would have been okay. And you still kind of got away with this mystery of what the fuck are they until that last act. Well, not really the last act. Literally probably about 5-10 minutes later, where you get to see the monster a bit more visually in the light-ish is the word I should say there. But yeah, I feel like a 6.3 is a decent place for this movie to sit. As I say, you can check it out on, I think, as I say, if you're in the UK, it's on Now TV right now. And I don't know if it'll still be on sale when this video goes out, because it was $4.99 on Prime Video, but I don't know if it's still the same price by the time this video goes out. It might have gone back up to $9.99. I don't have a clue. But yeah. So if you've seen Arcadian, put your thoughts on the movie in the comments below. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? What did you like? What didn't you like? Did the shaky cam annoy you? Did the scenes being too dark annoy you? Was Nick Cage decent? And yeah, just put your comments like that in below. And obviously don't forget to check out last week's video, which was me covering Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. A bit longer than this video, so you'll have a bit more to enjoy there. And you can check out all my other podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, etc. And yeah, obviously, I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I always say this at the end, I don't know what I'm going to cover next week. Because I mean, I had a plan for this week and I kind of changed that when I watched this. So I'll just see what I watch this coming weekend. So yeah, until next week, I hope you enjoy this episode. I do hope to see you next time. Goodbye. If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And well, I'll see you on the next video.